that is a perfect segue, because let's now move into your years now at 18. And this is where I'm going to throw some of my stuff in there as well, because certainly, and I think the time period is very important. You know, here it is. Before I go there, I want to go back to something real quick before I go there, because I don't want to segue into that, because I put a pin in this, wrote this down. From academically, you actually started in a private school, then you went to a public school. So you started a Christian school, then a Catholic school in Detroit, and then you went to a public school in Detroit. I don't want to jump to the military yet, because before that, you mentioned going to Arizona. How in the world did you end up out here in the AZ, yo?
That goes back to when I was saying dysfunction or chaos. This is my opinion. All right, so let me throw that out there, and I'm sure you can relate. Maybe you might not have the same opinion, but you understand as a parent. And I'm not faulting our parents for this at all. I believe they did the best job they could with what they had and what they knew to do. I commend our uncle and auntie, one, for taking me in. That wasn't their responsibility. And, I suppose, but alluding to, in my opinion, I wouldn't have sent my kid to Arizona. So, and I'm not a fan of that. I have taken a child in and a family member, but they were in a different situation, to the point where they were in Detroit in a car when I found out no heat with a child, but I'm sorry, they were in the car because they didn't have any heat in the house. So when they go to bed, when the sun went down, they go out to the car. And when I found that, I was like, nope, sitting down. And which was one of my in-laws, that was staying with us for a while. And so when I believe, of course, if there's some abuse and things like that, that's fine. But I've had some frustrating parenting moments as well. And there was opportunities, and I'm glad that I did go. I believe it fell into God's plan overall. There are things that I do at my own household now that I learned in Arizona. However, I will say that if my kids were getting ready to consider something like this, with my grandkids one day when I have them, I'm going to advise against it. I'm going to tell them, no, hey, you know what? I didn't send you to anyone. We got frustrated, whatever else, or whatever else went on, we dealt with it. And didn't matter which one it was our responsibility. Didn't matter who house you asked to go stay with or whatever else. It was our situation to deal with. And I'm just a firm believer in that. So again, I'm not faulting anyone for that decision, even if it was one I asked for. But at 15, I had no idea what I was asking for. And, but they did I commend Uncle Donald and Auntie Sue. That's a relationship I have with them. One of the last times I seen them, I thanked them again. And I told them, make the same comment I just made about I do things I learned from them. I do in my own household to this day, and I to them. But it was a responsibility, in my opinion, they shouldn't have had to take. I'll just leave it at that.
Now, it's real crazy, because I asked this question, and I'm glad to ask this question, but I'm embarrassed to ask this question, to be honest with you, because you said at 15. I asked this question, and I'm going to probably ask a couple of more just on your time in Arizona, because I honestly don't know. It's literally like I am talking to you like I would be talking to any other man that I don't know the full story behind. I'm embarrassed to ask the question, and if I haven't, I'm apologizing to you right now, because I do think about it every now and then. And I apologize to you, and I can't apologize enough for me being your older brother, not being there, because I look at that time period. And so, first of all, you saying you 15, immediately I'm like, man, he was 15. So that means I was 21. And
Well,
then I know at
14,
20.
I turned 15 already.
All right. So I had just became a father.
I'm sorry. Wait, man, 10th grade. Oh, it was my 10th grade year. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
15 going, yeah.
Yep. Right. So I had just became a dad. And I look back, I don't even remember ever calling you when you were out here, because I was so off in my own little problems in my own little world. So I apologize for not even being there for you the way that I should have been, because at that time I could still considered you my punk little brother, of course. But
Man, it's all good. You know what I mean? No apology, because it wasn't your responsibility, though. You know what I mean? I wasn't your kid, even though you had to step into that role at times. But that wasn't your responsibility either, man. And one you shouldn't have had to assume as much as you did as a parental figure. So you had your own stuff going on, understandably, no need to apologize. Never once even crossed my mind blaming you for any of that.
thanks. But I mean, I guess it's funny in a sad way that here was, when I think about it from an outsider's perspective, you weren't that bad of a kid that you should have to go live somewhere else. Is that how you felt looking back at that? Because I've heard, like you said, about other kids having to go live somewhere, usually they running from the law, or we go back to the old days, the girl that got pregnant, so we got to send her up north. But
Yeah.
you didn't get in trouble. And I'm talking any trouble as in, it was almost, let me frame it this way. Do you think that you were considered a bad kid because you didn't live up to the expectations of our household? Or do you think that, I guess, why do you think that decision was made? Now, this is new to me. I didn't know you asked for it. Why did you ask for it as well? Because you wasn't in any trouble. You didn't have a record. You wasn't getting arrested. Okay, so you had some guns and knives. We just talked about people stealing bikes and stuff. You needed to have guns and knives, or at least knives, we'll say at that time. Guns would have been a different story. But knives, you needed to have that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I did ask, but it was more like, because Alton and Jason went out there to visit and things like that. So I kind of heard about it and did it. I don't know, it kind of just came up. I don't remember exact day, and then it's kind of rolled from there. And again, because I was internalizing a lot of things, getting angry, conflict that was going on in the house at the time. So I guess I can sum it up by this story here. So remember rolling back from California. You're in the Civic, Chris, you got the red Cadillac rental car, right? So I remember by the time we're rolling back, I'm already like ready to go back to Arizona at that point, because it's like, I remember all I was talking about was the Bible, the word, and all the scripture I learned. So, mama loved that. So we were all talking about that. And I could recognize the tone, the demeanor changing by a member of the household. And I remember sitting there like, man, I'm getting mad because I'm talking about the word. So we immediately started clashing. And it just like picked right back up where it left off. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting like, man, all I'm talking about is the Bible. So I remember we were riding home. I was in the back of the caddy. And I woke up to your parents arguing. And at this time, a certain member, a relative of ours, was in a boys' home. So I remember your father saying that I need to be put in the boys' home just like him and all this stuff when we got back. Now we ain't even made it back to Michigan yet. We like in Nevada or something somewhere, right?
That means we had only been on the road not even about one full day.
Yeah, so I'm listening to this stuff and they think I'm sleeping. And I'm listening to this argument about me and put me in the boys. And of course, his mother immediately blasts back and nobody doing nothing and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, I'm not even home yet. And I'm trying to think, like, what did I do? I was talking about the word. I did remember I wanted a BB gun and I was saving up working for it with Uncle Lawrence while I was there. So I really couldn't pinpoint it. So that was, I won't, but again, I'm not going to blame no one else for my decisions, but that put some doubt, you know, it definitely in my, because again, now I'm already frustrated. So now that anger that I'll say that kind of resolved over the year and just thinking, you know, things are going to be different. It just picked right up from where they left off. And now I'm a little older, about to get my license when I get back. Now I'm in Murray Wright, and you know, it didn't help the situation. I just best way I can put it. So.
You know, I think what's interesting is that here it is. We both had an opportunity to leave home, and it goes to show. I'm going to say again. Dads, you've heard me say this in other shows, the power we have over our households, because long before you had that decision to make, I don't know if you remember, but on one of our trips out to California, grandmama and auntie wanted me to stay and do an amusement park tour with them. Great America, Knott's Berry Farms. I guess grandma was taking Lisa and they're gonna go all these amusement parks. And as much as obviously that love for the West came from those trips to California, I was like, you know, and they were like, don't you want to stay? And it's not, you know, uncommon for kids to stay the summers at their grandparents. And they were talking about flying me back. And it was like, no, I'd rather be at home with the family. But yet in a few short years later, you was like, I want out. let me get up out of here, because our family dynamic had changed so much. It had changed so much. You know, I always remember that trip. If I had to take a recording of when you and I became close, if I was telling my own story, I would say that was that pinpoint where when you got back from Arizona, that was where you stopped becoming my little brother, the punk little brother that was messing up my Hot Wheels and baseball cards, to now it was like, I think we became friends then. And so I always remember that trip and you coming back. So now we get back to, you're back in Detroit. And how did life change for you? And quick, let me say this real quick too, because I don't want to leave this. You mentioned Uncle Don and Auntie Sue. Yes, they have impacted my household. Thank y'all for what you've done. And so again, I'll say as dads and the mom as well, you don't know the impact you are having, not just on your own household, but on other people's households. I asked my kids a long time ago, as y'all move out, let's still get together on Sundays. And that's still a tradition we try to do, because that's what they did. And so, you know, props to y'all for doing that. Props, y'all impacted other households you didn't even think. But now you come back to Detroit.
Let me interrupt real quick. So one thing, if you were asking any of my kids and look at them, especially Jaden, and say she's getting ready to leave, I walk out the door and you say, if you get in trouble, remember to pray and call on the name of, so you say Jesus. And because that's what I used to have to say every morning when I left the house with Auntie Sue. So we'd be walking to Apollo. She's like, get in trouble, remember to pray, call on the name of. Be like, Jesus. And I'm like in 5th grade. I did that to my kids all the way up. Jaden's the last one. I still do that too. She's not 18 yet. So that, again, that's something I picked up from their house that I learned. And that's why I said, you know, even that fit, I believe in God's plan. Because those are things that I've imparted to my kids that I learned from them.
It almost sounds like you were Joseph. It almost sounds like you were Joseph. Here it is. Your life didn't necessarily go the way you would have planned it. And then we're not going to say what somebody meant for evil, because that wasn't the case, like you said, but what could have been something perceived as meant for evil or derail that plan, what you learned during your time in Egypt ends up becoming the legacy of where God would end up really taking you later on in your future.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Man, that's something. I never thought of it that way. That's great. And I'm in Arizona today, partially because of you. Because I'm moving to California. So man, that's spectacular. So you come